See how it goes.
All right, everybody, looks like it's recording. Hey, YouTube, this is Sam Dennehy, aka Halfass Customs, and this is Halfass Presents the podcast. Our guest tonight is William Radcliffe. Um, I think most of you probably know of him or his work. I'm an admirer, have been for a long time. William, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the hobby?
All right, Sam. Thanks a lot for having me on here, man. This is going to be awesome. I've admired your work for quite a while.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I got started building models probably when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and probably inspired by my dad. My dad built radio control airplanes and boats, and he tinkered with clocks, and he was an instrument repairman by trade. So he's always tinkering with small things, and I think that's probably what inspired me. So I started building models out of clay when I was probably 6 years old, I think. And when I got to be maybe about 9 years old, I got interested in Indy cars, race cars. And I started building Indy cars out of clay. And I can remember doing a show and tell in fourth grade with a little Indy car.
Wow,
And it was
that's
actually
neat.
pretty good at that time. And I proceeded to build more and more models out of clay. I started getting interested in trucks when I was maybe, I guess, about 13 or 14 years old. And later in this interview, I'm going to show you some of those clay model trucks that I still have that were built in the
Wow,
80s.
that's cool. Yeah, I'll be interested to see those.
Yeah, so I build a little of everything. I mean, I'm 187th is big for me. I love 187th scale trucks and cars and stuff, but I build a little bit of everything. I build ships, I build rockets, aircraft, race cars, pretty much you name it. You can see behind me some of the models in my display case, including a 196 scale guided missile cruiser that's 100% scratch built, radio controlled, operates, runs in the water.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I have
you're a
a
madman.
submarine. Yeah, so I'm just a model building maniac. I am a professional model maker, have been for about 35 years. Uh, right now, I build surgical instruments for spine surgery, but I'm still titled a model maker.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
type models essentially. I build custom surgical instruments. But for
Wow.
a long time, for about 27 years, I worked for a company called Product Dynamics, and we did toys and models, toy prototypes, and it was just great. I loved that job. So that's really
The dream job.
great. That's where I learned how to machine plastic and how to mold and cast and vacuum form and paint all those things that I do now. So
Wow.
I work for companies like Fisher Price, Tyco, Hasbro, lots of toy prototypes. We did crash test dummies. We did dolls, just about everything. I did a lot of cars for the Franklin Mint.
Oh,
Still see a lot of those Franklin Mint cars around. I did probably about
I
30.
have a few.
Yeah, you might have one that I actually did because I did about 30 masters for the Franklin Mint back in the, I guess in the late
Oh man,
early 2000s.
that I'll tell you what, man. I was a fan before, but now I'm an even bigger fan knowing that you have a dream job that most modelers wish they had.
It is. I love it. I didn't even know that career model maker existed when I was young. I kind of thought I would go into auto mechanics. I wound up being an automotive machinist when I was about 18, which I really liked. One day, my brother comes to me and says, "Hey, I saw an ad in the paper for a model maker. You should check into that. You build models."
Jeez.
Yeah, all right. So I called them up. They said, "Come on over." I brought a couple of my things and they hired me on the spot. And
What?
I was there
Oh
for
man.
27 years. And I would still be working for that company now if they didn't go out of business. But a whole lot of factors like economy and a lot of things being sent overseas,
Right.
computerization of model making caused them to kind of lose business. And eventually they
See,
failed,
the
which is a real
good
shame.
old days are definitely over.
They are that kind of handwork, just doesn't really happen anymore. It's a shame. Or it happens on a very limited basis, but um, I built quite a life out of it, and I learned a lot.
That's amazing. I literally didn't know any of that stuff, and I am so impressed, William. That is that is just amazing. I mean, for one, I literally didn't know that job existed either. I mean, I knew that you could work for a model company that designs stuff and releases stuff to the public, like Revell or AMT or
Mhm.
whatever, or
Yeah,
any one of the train companies. But I mean, you're kind of pioneering the model side of it,
yeah.
designing stuff and making it so probably most of us could buy it or make it ourselves.
It was a blast. A lot of things that we did way back were advertising models. So we would build a model of, let's say, for a medical company, a pharmaceutical company, we would build a large model of a pill, a capsule. And then they would use that for photography for advertising that particular medication. Nowadays, they
Wow,
do all that by computer, but we would literally make the models back then.
that's crazy.
Yeah, so many different things that we did.
Did you guys build the operation game for medical doctors to learn on?
No, we didn't do that. But I sort of do that now, actually.
Well, a serious question. You see it in a lot of doctors' offices where you have like that uh, half torso mannequin
Mhm.
with all the guts inside. Were
Yes.
you sort of part of that, or not really? Because
Um,
that's
no,
basically a model.
it is. And there's a whole industry for that, and there still is. I never really did that. However, the company that I work for now, we do basically spine surgery. And I'm a machinist and I make custom surgical instruments, but I kept telling my bosses that we can do those models in house. We used to buy them from another company and spend a lot of money.
I
And I have
bet.
the talent here to do that because we have 4 or 5 guys that that still do work at this company who did that stuff before, including a good friend of mine, Mike. And I kept telling them we can do it. So we started kind of dabbling in it. And then unfortunately, the company that I used to work for, they finally shut down completely. And I said, we can buy their whole casting department and we can bring it here and do it here. And the company approved it, bought all their casting equipment, bought it into our company.
Oh
And so
wow.
now we have a whole department that makes bone models essentially. They make these clear acrylic bone models that show how the implant fits into the spine and how the instruments work and all. It's
That
great.
is crazy.
Be part of that. I dabble in it a little bit, but it's some of the guys that I used to work with who are now in that department. So it's really cool.
That is really, really neat.
Yeah, I
I
love what I do. I mean, it's a great job because I'm making instruments that are being used in human body.
right.
And
Saving lives daily.
yeah, yeah, correcting spinal disorders, which is a big thing.
I almost don't even want to talk about models no more. I just want to talk about your career. That's that is so neat. Um, but seeing that this is a model podcast, that's awesome, William. That is you have a better job than me. I'm jealous. um, so back to I guess the topic at hand, modeling, 187 scale. Um, yeah, when do you think you got into say that scale?
I
Um,
think I got into it pretty heavy in about 95 or 96. The first model that I built was a B model Mac.
oh, okay.
I just loved it. And I still actually have a couple of those that I built back then. Um, Around that time, it just was a perfect scale. And going back a little bit, I talked about my clay models, and they're actually very close to 187 scale. Not exactly, because back then I didn't really know much about scale. I just built them to the size that I felt I liked.
Well,
Turns out
that
that they're very close to 187, which is kind of ironic, right?
yeah, that's
So,
pretty good.
um, I started getting into the 187 scale models. I think I dabbled in a little bit in the late 80s, probably, but I think I got into it pretty good in 95, 96, 97. That's when I started to find out about this group called the 187 Vehicle Club, which was primarily a couple of pioneers, Bob Johnson, Dan Goins,
Mhm.
uh, Wayne Calder, and a few other guys that started this 187 Vehicle Club. And it was basically like a mail-in thing. You know, you would mail in a check and a membership, and they would send out a newsletter and
Yeah,
conventions every year. And
that's neat.
the convention that I went to was in Baltimore, Maryland, actually right outside of Baltimore in Towson. And that's when I met all of those guys. Trip Aiken, I think you
Oh
met
wow.
at Springfield
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
guy, and Bob Johnson, Dan Goins, all those guys. I think I actually met Joe Enriquez there and Andy Madden. Um, and that's when I really got into it at that point. They were just
That's
blown away by the stuff that I was building because I didn't know anything about them. They didn't know anything about me. I went there
right.
with these models that were really cool. And they were just blown away. Like, who is this guy? Where did he come from?
Right.
And so my
Well, yeah,
product line kind of took off from there.
that's really neat. Um, yeah, I keep kicking myself in the foot talking to a lot of our veteran 187 scale builders because I think all this time I was building other scales, I would have loved to focus more on this smaller scale because I didn't build my first 187 scale car until maybe 2005, and I just did it because I I saw Mercury from Woodland Scenics with the girl sitting on the fender and the guy standing up next to her, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna chop top that and put some leg pipes on it and lower it. That'll be neat. And then that was the first one I did, and I didn't touch another one for like I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, and then that's when I joined this hobby, and I just been going at it. So I wish I went back in time and like joined it sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I mean, we had a lot of conventions back then. You know, there was one in Towson, we had one up in North Jersey, then we had one in Allentown.
Oh man.
A convention, basically every year, they would switch between the West Coast and the East Coast.
Oh, we should be doing that now.
I know.
Or
Well, it's kind of been replaced by the Springfield show. That essentially is our convention now.
yeah,
It got
and
away.
I was talking to somebody else and I was like, I know the East Coast or anywhere from the east part of the United States, Springfield is the show, but the
Yeah,
West Coast doesn't have anything, at
not
least
really,
in
just
our
that
little club.
Midwest. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
thought, how neat would that be?
The conventions were pretty cool. They were awesome. That's where I met a lot of these guys. But you got to understand, it was a big undertaking to put those shows on.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, it wasn't a moneymaker or anything. They were just,
Right. No, it was a money.
it
I
was
don't want to say
hard.
waster, but you definitely spend a lot just for a weekend to go somewhere. Just
Yeah,
and not even to really walk away with anything, but just to show off at like a show and tell and meet with
yeah,
friends.
yeah. And you know, then it eventually grew into the Springfield show. Now that started for me around 2006, I think was the first time that I went to the Springfield show. So it was only a few years after the last convention. And a lot of those guys that are big players in the 187 scale vehicle club, Bob Johnson, Dan Goins, Andy Madden, Joe Enriquez, Rich Reinhardt, they started going to that show along with me. And we just basically went to the show and then we would sort of have our own little meeting, maybe in a hotel room. Then
Oh,
the
that's cool.
grew much bigger. We actually got a room. We got like one of those little meeting rooms.
Uh-huh.
We
Yeah,
set up
like conference
plays
room.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And we did that for a couple of years. And Bob, he knew a lot of the people at the Springfield show. He knew the guys that ran the show. And they started asking him, come to the show, set up at the show. We want you guys.
Oh, that's cool.
Started, I think, probably around, I guess around 2010, probably was the first time that we did that actually in the show. And that's why we have our own big area. They want us there.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
so that's great because I think I was looking at I was looking at my first post, well, not my first post, my first car that got publicized in the 187 scale website in their
Mhm.
gallery. And I think it was back in 2012 or 2013. And that's really when I jumped fully into this scale and said, I'm going for it. And that was only like 1 to 2 years after you guys went to Springfield. So I'm
Yeah.
under the assumption you guys been going there for like many of years, but listening
No.
to what you're saying, I'm right sort I joined the hobby right when it kind of began, and it took me this long to finally get there to Springfield.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame it took you a while to get there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what it
There.
is. It's Christmas and New Year's, and it's that darn month because going up that far north, chances of you getting in the snow is higher than it would be if you
Yeah.
went south.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. It's always a risk. But that show was so great. You know,
Oh,
it's
it is. I loved it.
and you know,
And I
and myself and another fellow, we came up with that Route 87 concept and started that,
yeah,
developed it, and then Andy Madden did all the work on designing everything and laying it out. So another guy that I'll mention named Marlon Spencer. You probably haven't met Marlon. He's a good dude. Lives down in Washington. Modeled a lot of bus,
okay.
fire trucks and stuff. Um, he actually proposed that concept to me. He said, "Hey, you know how the model railroad guys have these modules that they put together? We should do something like that with our 187 vehicles."
Right, right.
Man, that's a great idea. And it just took off from there.
Yeah, I honestly, so maybe 2000 to 2003, I was in an N scale model railroading club, and I built a module just so I can hook up and we can go to shows. And when I first saw this module idea, um, had to been, I don't think it was on the 187 scale group, or no, 187 scale club site. I think it was maybe a post in the group that we're all in, and somebody was using it as just a display to put their vehicles on. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that and I thought, that is such a neat idea. And then, and this was right when I first started. So then I saw somebody posting pictures of Springfield later on that year or something. I was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of these. I've got to figure out what these are.
Yeah.
And then I think I replied to one of the pictures, and then maybe Chester or maybe somebody replied, said, this is Route 187. There's a whole
Yes.
website for it. Check it out. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I finally have something to put a whole bunch of cars on that I can display. I got to start building this.
Yeah.
And it's a genius idea.
Yeah.
And I
It's really
love
cool.
how Springfield allows it to be like set up for a whole entire rectangle circle kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Mentioned,
you guys did
you
a
mentioned Chester
genius
there.
thought. Yeah,
You mentioned Chester. I think you know he passed away a couple of years ago.
right, right.
It's a shame you didn't get to meet that guy.
I didn't, and we
But
did talk a lot because when I was posting all my hot rods, he would reply with some of his hot rods just to show that I wasn't all by myself. And
yeah,
he we talked a lot in the beginning, and then as time goes on, they're building other things, and it's maybe not what I'm building, and so you don't talk as much. But
yeah,
he gave me so much information, and he told me
yeah.
that he gave me the dimensions of the Route 187 because I wasn't understanding the diagram on the website. So
Hmm.
he's like, look, it's only like an inch and a half from the front of the base, and then the back of the base is, up to you, whatever. And so he gave me a lot of information, and I really, really, really wish I did get to meet him.
Yeah. Oh man, he was genuine. He was
Yeah.
just the nicest guy and an incredible talent. So good.
Yeah, he was good. I did get to
I,
see some of his work in person, though, at the St. Louis show. I think Mike Budd or somebody put out like 6 of his construction vehicles, commercial vehicles, all in a row, and said like, "With love, our great friend Chester,
yes.
and
Yeah.
rest in peace," and whatnot. And I thought that is so neat that they were able to do that, because I don't think I would have been able to see any of his stuff in person, since he did tell me he gave most of his stuff away to friends and stuff because he
Yeah.
didn't care to keep them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. He did. He did. Yeah. Another fella that you probably haven't met who is one of the most talented 187 modelers there is Joe Enriquez. I don't know if you know Joe's name. He's been to
Maybe.
Springfield. He tries to go every other year. He was not there last year, but I hope that you can meet him. Um,
Well, if this next year happens, I'll be at the next show. So hopefully,
yeah,
if he's there.
yeah. Hopefully he'll be there. He built a 187 scale Mack FCSW water truck. So it's like a late 1940s truck with a water tank on the back. And myself, Rich, and Andy have always said it's the finest 87 scale vehicle model I have ever seen. This thing
Wow.
is phenomenal. It's just incredible. You got to see it. It just blows your mind.
Yeah, I would like to see that, because even though it's not like my cup of tea as in vehicle wise,
Yeah,
I totally admire great craftsmanship of modeling. So no
Yeah.
matter what it is, if you are a master modeler, that like excites me,
Yeah.
because even though I don't care for the vehicle genre, it's what you did to that vehicle that really can tell a story and tells more about you, the builder, than maybe the car, or the
Yep.
model.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I see you. Like, you can build. I was just talking to somebody last night. Oh, Raleigh, Dave Raleigh. I don't know. I was just talking to him last night, and he builds these dioramas that has so much detail in them. It can tell a whole entire story with one picture. And I feel like some of your dioramas do that same thing. Like when you built that banked IndyCar track with the Indy cars on it, I
Yeah.
thought that is so neat. Just that little tiny pie-shaped diorama told so much in just a
Yeah.
little tiny space. That's so neat that you have the mind frame to be able to create it, execute it, and then whether you know it or not, it be good enough to tell a story without you having to explain anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those things pop up out of almost nothing too. In fact, I can give you a quick example of one that I built right here. Let's see if we can see this.
Oh yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a
So
military vehicle, tank vehicle thing. I don't know
yeah.
military
So
vehicles, so
I found this model of a cannon, Civil War era cannon, put it together, and I also had this model of what's called a HEMTT. It's a heavy expanded mobility tactical truck. It's a military truck that they still use now. I set the cannon in the back and I thought, oh, that's a cool idea, a little time travel thing. So you can see that I have like a Civil War soldier on horseback and
yeah.
a military man talking to him with a radio, kind of asking for directions as this HEMTT is delivering the Civil War era cannons. Now, it doesn't
That's neat.
have to mean anything. It's all in the eye of the interpreter.
Right, right.
What
Yeah,
you
no, you're
think that it
exactly right.
means. But that's just an idea that came up out of just having a couple of models and putting them together.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny to me because I go to a lot of IPMS shows and I go to regular model car shows, and even the model car shows that don't have no sci-fi, no planes, no trains, no nothing, they will sometimes put a description of what the diorama they're trying to display is trying to tell. And just like IPMS, they do the same thing. If a diorama is trying to tell something, the builder feels he needs to make the whole entire paragraph of the actual scene. And I think in my head, if it was so good, you shouldn't need to do that. You
Exactly.
should be able to see it and read it as it's being displayed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of yours do that. And I love that.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
So, next question. What inspires you to build what you build? Because you kind of are, like you said, all over the place with your models. You don't build a specific genre. Like I just build hot rods and lowriders and customs. That's mainly my thing. So seeing that you build multiple different types of models, from spaceships to bridges to cars, what inspires you to do the actual builds? Like what makes you think of doing that particular build, in other words?
I think it's just things that I like, but I can't really have. I mean, I can't own a fighter plane or a ship, or
Maybe.
maybe I could probably own a truck, I suppose. But I see things that I really like, and I build a model of them, and then I have a small scale, but I have it. You know,
Right.
ships, rockets, fighter planes, things like that. Also, I think memories uh, really inspire me a lot. Back when I
Well,
started getting into trucks, because as most guys know, I'm primarily into Mack trucks, and especially the Macks of the 70s. That's when I first started getting into it. I used to write to Mack trucks and ask them for brochures, ask them if they would send me brochures, and they would send them to me.
that's cool.
Take those, and I would build the clay models from the brochures. So now, when I build a particular model, it's always kind of based on a memory, something that I liked back when I was a kid. Not always, but a lot of times. So I think that's my inspiration is building,
Things you love
bring back
from
memories,
memory.
things that I love, things that I'd really like to have, but I can't have for real. I can't have a big truck out in my yard. I don't have enough room for it. So I build really
Right.
small ones.
So you built a, a Route 187 teeny tiny module to fit in the gap of maybe something that ran out of room somewhere else of an Amish police officer pulling over a muscle car.
Yeah.
So I don't think that happened to you as a child, but what made you
No.
think of that idea? Because that was neat. That's an
Where did
ingenious little idea.
I come up with that? I can't remember how I came up with that idea. I think I probably saw an Amish buggy because I live in Pennsylvania. We have an Amish community not too far, about an hour and a half away, and I go to a truck show out there all the time. And I remember seeing an Amish buggy and thinking it'd be kind of funny if that was a police Amish buggy. And then
It works.
the ridiculousness of a horse and buggy pulling over a Hemi.
Right. Yeah. That's why it works
It's
because
cool.
it's so comical, but so like you could probably see it. Like you would probably imagine that the speed limit on that road was 15 miles an hour, something that the horse could do if it
Yeah.
was running or walking quick or whatever. And that Hemi was doing maybe 20. And that buggy was like, nope, I said 15, buddy. What are you thinking?
I love
And you,
ridiculous stuff like
it,
that.
yeah, and you know, like, why would you even be going that slow in a Hemi to begin with? That's like
Yeah.
idle speed for the Hemi, probably.
Actually, on my module, there are a couple little nuances like that that I added in. I love little hidden stuff like that.
You
There,
did show me the hidden thing in the garage, which I think it was the garage that
yes,
I thought was pretty cool. And
that's
then
one of
just
them.
like on your indie scene behind the bleachers
Hmm.
or behind the bank, there was a nice little added feature.
That was another one where I saw one of those figures in a model shop, and the idea just came to me. It would be funny to have that. No offense to the people that are involved in that.
Right, right.
It's not them. It's somebody dressed up like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
It,
about. But um, oh, another nuance on the module is I have a Sasquatch crossing sign
yeah.
road,
Right. In
and
Pennsylvania.
all the way in the back, hidden behind the building, is a Sasquatch walking behind a tree.
Right.
There's another guy, and he's standing there with a radio control in his hand, and he's looking up. If you look closely up in the tree, there's a small flying saucer up in the tree, and the guy holding the radio control is me. It's a little model
Oh, nice.
flying a drone. It looks
Right.
like a UFO. So
That's cool.
little things in.
I did see on Shapeway that somebody designed literally 187 or HO scale drones.
Hmm.
They've got to be like this big, so tiny that you would drop it on the floor and lose it. And you
But
think, who's going to paint it for one? And then who's going to use that in a diorama that you probably won't see it unless you pointed it out? Look at that drone right there. That's what
yeah,
that is. That's
yeah,
spec. It's a drone.
I could probably fit that in somewhere.
I mean, you could if you could, but I think most people would see that and not know how to use it properly in order for people to be able to know that it's even in a diorama
Yeah,
because it's such a small item. You would have to know where it is, but you would
gotta be
know how to
tiny.
position it to where people would see it.
That's gotta be tiny.
Yeah,
Gotta
they
be.
were tiny. I didn't see the printout. I just saw the design and it said 187 scale HO, and I'm thinking that's impossible. It's a drone would be smaller than the rim on this tire.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even a big
It'd
drone,
just be ridiculous.
maybe 2 feet across. That means it's about 20 thousandths, 25 thousandths of an inch.
Yeah, I
Really
mean,
small.
go for it if you want to be that detailed, but that's
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that. I'll lose them as soon as I open the plastic bag they come in.
yeah.
But that's cool, William. You said you started building models out of clay.
Mm-hmm.
You care to elaborate and show us what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think I can show you some of those. Let's see
Cool.
if I can. Let's see if I can link up with my phone. Hold on a second.
Well, we see you.
Okay.
There's that echo.
Get away from me.
Strangely enough, on your cell phone, it does say your mic is muted.
Maybe I ought to get rid of that light.
That probably helped it.
I think that's better. If
Yeah.
you can see this,
Yeah, the display case you have back there.
yeah,
Yeah,
better.
we can
Now we
see
don't
it.
have the echo. Okay,
Right.
let's see. Now, you know what? Let's do this different. Because I can bring the models over here and I'll just bring them in front of the laptop.
Cool.
It might be. Okay. So this is one of the clay models that I built. I'm going to move this down a bit and get a good look at it.
And is the whole thing clay, like the wheels and the trailer?
Everything is made out of clay completely and then painted.
That is crazy.
Clay that you could get at like a Kitty City or wherever. And then I would build these models and I would paint them.
That's wild.
Here's another one. This
I
model
mean, there's
was probably built in 1975, I think. So
wow.
we're talking 45 years old, and it's still in reasonably good shape. Even would have a hood that
Oh,
sort of
geez.
forward, have engine detail.
That's crazy, William. I mean, the fact that you did it out of clay and you pulled it off and it looks really good. I mean, I can't build anything out of clay. And I've tried.
Yeah. You know, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that I wanted to build models of stuff that I really liked and it wasn't necessarily available. So I would build
Right.
it clay because I couldn't get a plastic model kit. And I think when I started with some of the clay models, they were a little bit bigger, but then I decided it was more efficient for me to build a little bit smaller. Get more models, I could get more models out of a given amount of clay. It wasn't quite so hard. And that's probably
Right.
inspired me to get into the 187 scale because these are very close to 187 scale.
Well, they
Let me
look
try my,
really cool, especially for being clay. Um, I know when I first started this scale, I was very disappointed in the amount of passenger vehicles that weren't available. And then the ones that they were, it seemed like I jumped into the scale too late because then they were discontinued and they were very hard to find. And at one point they were everywhere and now they're nowhere. And it wasn't until the 3D printing came out that it really gave you the option to get cars that just doesn't exist in 187 scale.
yeah, absolutely.
And I jumped on it. And I'm so happy I did, but now they're just getting way too outpriced and ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
So the fact that you
Try
were
that.
kind of ahead of the 3D printing by building it out of clay.
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah. Let me try my phone one more time because I think I got a lot of things I want to show you. Let's see if we can get that to work.
That's fine.
What I think I can do is mute the audio here
Right.
and then use this audio.
Yep, that worked.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do. you seeing these models out there?
Yeah, I can see him. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a clay model of an R model Mack fire truck that I built, again, probably in 1975. And then this is its modern version that I built maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
I will tell you, the only problem is the audio. If maybe you could
Okay.
hold the phone maybe closer to your head.
Any better here?
Yeah.
Better here. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. There's a couple of Hans again, models that I built, and then a much better version of it. More recently. You can see the clay model is pretty close.
The audio is blanking out.
All right. So that's not working real well. What we're going to do is jump off of this and get back to this.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see them. The video was for the most part okay. It was the audio that was cutting in and out.
Yeah. All right.
But those are pretty cool, though.
Yeah. Now, another thing I can show you is some of my molds and castings. Now,
Yeah.
I have a business called Ratcliffe Models, where I produce a line of 187 scale trucks, kits, and parts.
Cool.
I have a couple of molds and some castings that I think I can show you. People might be.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean,
Right.
anything that's related to the scale,
Yeah.
what this podcast is about.
So I have a product line of about 130 different products I have on my website.
Nice.
A lot of cabs, wheel sets, frames, engines. I kind of gear my product line towards guys who want to scratch build, sort of, or kit bash, put trucks together with a variety of parts. So I offer a whole lot of different axles and wheels and frame sets and all, so that people can mix and match and build whatever it is that they want to build. One of the problems with having so many products is I've got to keep making new molds all the time. So just this morning, I poured 6 new molds.
Oh, geez.
Battle. Yeah. So I have one of them, and I'm going to grab that and show you. So this is a poured mold right here.
Okay.
Still in the box. This one hasn't been unboxed yet. Can you see that real well?
I think we can see it. I don't know if the people that have never seen these before would understand exactly what it is, but I've seen it, so I already get it. But if maybe you can explain what it is that you use and why it looks that way, and then explain the second part of that, like when you cut it open to get the inside to pour the resin in.
Yep. So this is a first half pour. So initially I set the part up on a pad of clay.
Mm-hmm.
There's the clay, and the frame is set up in there. You can kind of see the silhouette of where the frame was set into this.
Yeah.
Box around it like you just saw, and then pour the rubber into it. From that, break the sides of the boxes off, and we wind up essentially with this. We pull that out of there, and that's our first half.
That's cool.
Frame, it's embedded into that clay, and it's ready to now be boxed again, and the second half will be poured on top of this. First thing that I do is spray a mold release over this silicone rubber, because if you don't, it will literally fuse together. So we spray a mold release on it, creates a barrier. Put this back into our plastic, build a box up, pour the second half. And we separate them, take the master out, and we have a void there that is the frame. Then the last thing to do is to cut holes for venting and for injecting the material in to create the castings. Now, I'll show you how I pull a casting out of a mold. I have a mold with a casting ready to be pulled out, a real simple one. I'll grab that. So here's a mold that was just cast a little while ago. My girl Sandy casts most of this stuff for me. She's become an outstanding caster.
Nice.
So yeah, taught her how to do it, and she's become very, very good at it. So
How much you paying her?
rent and board.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
Sandy's awesome. So it's a two-part mold. You can kind of see the split right there, and we use masking tape to hold it together. It's injected in the top, and there's some vent holes there. So the way we take this apart is we kind of cut the tape away. Peel that away. And then I'm going to gently pull this apart. And there's the cast part.
That's neat.
And that is an axle trunnion for a 65,000 pound axle. Try to keep this in front of the camera so you all can see it. Very gently kind of wiggle this out. Pull it out of there. And there's our axle trunnion.
Oh, wow.
And you can see the two sprues sticking off, or vents actually. Material goes in one, out the other.
So just so the viewers know, the mold is a silicone base, and then the part is a resin that you poured in there.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, the mold is they call it a platinum cured silicone. So it uses two parts. It uses a resin or a base and then a catalyst, 10-to-1 mix. The urethane is a 1-to-1 mix. Most people call it resin. It's actually a polyurethane.
Oh, okay.
Yep. There's a whole variety of them too. And I've got it narrowed down to the one that I like and I use all the time. And I've been using it for probably 15, maybe even 20 years now. I've been using that same material.
Well, you know what they say. You can't, I don't even know what they say.
I think don't fix it if it ain't broke. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's, gosh, brain farts, they happen so often to me.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, exactly. If you find something that works and they still offer it, there's no sense in changing it.
Yep.
Because it still works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it takes
That's
a lot
neat.
of right stuff. I know a lot of guys dabble in molding and casting.
Yeah, Mike Budd is one. All his Camaros he's building. Yeah, he actually showed me that process that you just showed the viewers. And that's what I knew what it was. And I know there's a lot of people that don't know what that was. And now that you just explained it, hopefully they'll have a better idea. And then maybe, because you can buy a cheap $20 kit from Michael's that can essentially pull off that same thing that you just did. And if you guys out there want to build your own vehicle, just tear it all apart and then get that kit from Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and you can essentially mold a second version of the car you took apart and all its pieces.
Yep.
With some work. I mean, it's not just that easy. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it forever. Mike knows what he's doing. I've never actually done it. I'm too scared to start.
Yeah. It takes a lot of learning. There is a long learning curve. There are so many nuances to it.
It's funny because I have that $20 kit and it's sitting in the box in a drawer waiting to be used, and I just haven't used it. I haven't even opened it.
I'll tell you what to do. Try something simple with it. Just take like a marble and make a mold of a marble. It's about as simple as you can get, and just try it out. That'll give you a little bit of experience. You'll see how the materials work and how they mix and stuff, and then go to something a little bit more elaborate. Don't dive right in and try to do a very complicated body. Maybe do something like that. It's worthwhile. I mean, you can do so much by molding.
I was thinking of trying to just figure out how to do like the Jordan miniature wheels, because I mean, being that company's not in they're not in business no more. All you
Yeah.
can find is just old kits that people are selling for way too much now.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to like cast a whole slew of their steel wheels and
Yeah.
their 40 Ford kit, because that's like the best wheel ever.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, this Jordan
That
kit is nice.
yeah.
They're all nice.
Um, so that's cool. I did see at you had post. I don't even know where you posted. I don't know if you posted it on the 187 scale, considering it's not 187 scale and it's not vehicle related. But you had built a model of the Twin Towers.
Yes.
I thought, and I had recently, 3 years ago, went to New York for the first time, and we went to the World Trade area, and they had those monuments there that are sunk into the ground with the waterfalls and all the names everywhere. And seeing it on TV when it happened, and then going there in person and seeing the monument and the museum and stuff. I'm not a New Yorker, never will be. I'm not really even an East Coaster because my heart's still on the West Coast where I'm from. But that is such an impactful feeling of going there, where it all happened. And then to still see pictures floating around on Facebook of where the Twin Towers were and different pictures, different angles, and all this stuff, and thinking, some of these people that are very young will never know. And even though I never went there, why they were still up. I went to the aftermath of the memorial, and it's still like almost as if they're still there without being there, because that's like the feeling you get by how well they did the memorial.
Yeah.
And you did a model of the Twin Towers, and I think that's really neat.
Yeah, that was, I wanted to build that model for the longest time. Actually tried building one. This was after 2001. I tried building a model, and it's a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I mean, they basically look like rectangles.
Right. You
There's,
think it would be easy.
you would think it would, and it was so difficult. I finally just gave up. And then years later, I tried again. I guess it was about 4 years ago. I came up with a different way of doing it and actually made them a little bit larger. And then that
Oh, okay.
finally came up with, and it was a lot of work to build them, but they really came out good. Did you see them in Springfield, or do you
I
pictures?
think I saw them.
I don't
Um,
remember if I had them up there or not.
Maybe I didn't, but I
Yeah,
remember them so well. It seems like I did see them. So if I didn't, my memory's going crazy.
yeah. Well, you saw
Um,
pictures at least.
yeah, yeah. And then when we went up to World Trade One, and we went
Yeah.
to their gift shop and bought almost everything we possibly could, with still having enough money to get home.
Mm,
Um, and we did get a I don't know, statue of World Trade One that's probably this big.
yeah.
So it's probably maybe maybe the same size as your World Trade Centers. I don't know, but it was something that was already pre-made, and it was just a cool little memento to know I'm never going back to New York to stay or to visit. So let's bring that home, and we can have a little bit of peace in New York with us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, that was neat, and I really I think your genre, not even genre, your magnitude of different models is pretty neat, because when I first started modeling 30 years ago, I went into the 125th scale world, and which
Yeah.
is mostly just model cars. I mean, you didn't do dioramas of buildings that much in that scale. You just stuck with the cars, and I did that for 20 years or 20 years. And then I joined the Hot Wheels customizing world, and I couldn't compete. So I went to this scale, and I found out, oh, I love this scale. I'm really
Yeah.
the only one doing what I do. How awesome is that? I have nobody to
Yeah.
compete with. And back then, you kind of just built model cars. I mean, if you're in the 125th scale world, that's all there was really. I mean, the dioramas were very few and far between of actual buildings in that scale. So you stuck with cars. And when you go to a model car show, that's all that's on the tables is model cars, trucks, big rigs, but all 125th, 124th. So seeing that you kind of venture around different scales, different projects, different boats, planes, trains, bridges, big
Yeah.
bridges. Um,
Yes.
it's neat to see that you're like Ken Hamilton in a sense, because he builds anything he seems to want to build in any scale, and he does it and pulls it off like a master modeler. And it's crazy to see just the range that you guys have, because I don't have that. I'm not going to build a 1/35th scale diorama. I'm just not going to do it. It's not the
Yeah.
scale I care about building, but he just builds, I guess, what he likes. And it seems like you're building what you like, and it doesn't matter the scale. As long as you
Yep.
like it, you're going to build it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I build in all kinds of scales. And funny thing,
Yeah,
that bridge that you mentioned, the Hellgate Bridge, that is
right.
87 scale.
Right, yeah. I remember you talking to me about that, and that
Yeah.
thing is how long? Like 14
Uh,
feet long or something?
yeah, about 14 feet altogether.
And it's in 187 scale, which is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it is, isn't it? Something.
I mean, think about, I don't know bridges, but I know obviously there's longer bridges and shorter bridges and bigger bridges and smaller bridges, but think about if you didn't build that one and you said, I'm going to build the biggest bridge ever in 187 scale. I
Hmm.
couldn't even tell you how big that thing would actually end up being.
Yeah,
It would be huge,
yeah, I
because
calculated it.
your Hellgate's already big enough.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not an extraordinarily long bridge. It's about 950 feet, I think. The
Wow.
Verrazano Narrows Bridge, also in New York, is somewhere around 3,000 feet total. So
Oh,
roughly three times 14 feet. So you're talking about a bridge that's about 45 feet long in HO scale if you were going to model the Verrazano Narrows Bridge.
that
87.
would be insane. I could
It would
imagine
be.
somebody wanting to take that project on, but
Yeah.
it how would you transport it? Where would you set it up?
Yeah.
And you would want to leave it after you completely built it, because it'd be too much to undo to transfer or transport back and forth.
Yeah.
You'd want that like in a museum or something.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to.
So your bridge, where is that going somewhere, or is that staying with you?
No, I'm building that for a client actually. The fellow lives in Queens, New York, which is where one side of the bridge is. He's loved that bridge since he was a kid because he grew up in that neighborhood. And I actually made a smaller scale model of that Hellgate Bridge. It was I think about 14, 16 inches long. And there were pictures of it online. He saw those pictures, got in touch with me, and asked me if I could build him a model of this bridge, which initially I thought he was crazy. And
Yeah.
actually, he wanted me to do it in O scale, which is about twice the size of HO.
Oh, yeah, no, it is.
And I told him that just wasn't possible, but that I could build it in HO scale, which would be a lot more feasible. And so he's paying me to build this thing, and it's taking me forever. And I think it's going to take forever. I hope we build
But
it long enough.
but the crazy thing is, not only is it HO 187 scale, it's to exact specifications. You gave me like a rundown on, you went to that bridge, you went up into the towers or whatever
Yes,
they're called, and you literally scaled everything down to be, for the most part, all correct.
absolutely. He
That's even more crazy.
he got a hold of a set of drawings. They're copies of the original blueprints from the bridge model. Some of the blueprints. There probably were more. Actually signed by Gustav Lindenthal, who's the designer of the bridge.
Oh,
So
wow.
big booklet. They were there at Springfield. They were laying in front of the
I did see them.
yeah,
I
and I'm using them. So that model is right on in its proportions and in its scale. Now, I can't do every detail that that real bridge has. Like some of the truss work has X members within a particular I beam. I just can't do that because just to build one of those would take, I don't know, it would probably take 6 or 8 hours, and there are thousands of them. There's
Wow.
enough time in my life to build to every detail that it really has. You think about rivets, people talk about rivet counters. That bridge probably has several million rivets.
Oh, easy.
So
Because
you can't do
it's
that.
the all steel bridge, right?
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
it's famous for? All steel bridge?
Well, the truss sections are all steel, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
The,
you
the
can
con-
imagine there's probably billion rivets in that. Who
there
knows?
could be. The numbers are just astronomical, and one man could never do it in a lifetime. So I have to limit some of that detail, but
Makes sense.
by size and by appearance, it is right on. And you saw it, it's just going to be a fantastic,
Yeah.
if I can ever get it done.
Right. It's so funny because by the time I got to Springfield that Friday night, I'm setting up and there's only two spots open, and one was right next to your bridge, and it was a table and a half or a table and a quarter, and the other one was on the opposite end that had even less space. And Bob tells me, "Watch out, there's another person coming. So squeeze all your stuff together if you can, because there's going to be another person." And that person didn't show up, and I was able to take over that space. But even the amount of stuff I was showing at Springfield, which was more than anybody else's that they had on the table, it looked like I had nothing compared to your huge bridge I was literally right next to. I mean, that thing took up like the whole side of the display table room, and it was enormous.
Well, I didn't mean to overwhelm your display.
No,
It brought a lot of
that
attention.
yeah, no, I had no problem with that at all because I I heard of it and I think I saw some pictures here and there somewhere, some way, but
Yeah,
those pictures do nothing compared to seeing it in person. I
yeah.
mean, that thing's amazing. Even though you're
Thank you.
not, I wouldn't even say you're anywhere close to being done with it because of the amount of
No,
work that looks like it needs to be done. But just what was done, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
yeah.
And I don't know anything about that bridge because I'm not from anywhere close to up north. But is there, is it two layers? Is there train tracks on it, or how does that transportation work for that bridge?
It's strictly a train bridge. It was built by the Pennsylvania
Oh,
Railroad. So it's just one level. Originally, it had four tracks across, so it's a pretty wide bridge, but it's perfectly
oh,
flat across, where most bridges for automobiles, they kind of arc.
yeah, arch, right? Yeah, yeah.
That one's perfectly flat, because trains like to run on flat surfaces. They don't,
Go figure.
they go up and down hills, but the grades have to be subtle. So most of the time, railroad bridges are pretty straight. So it's just one level. It's a fantastic bridge. It's enormous. It's super strong. It was built in 1910, I think, roughly, and 100
Wow,
years later, it's still used every day. It's an enormous
that's crazy.
feat.
I can't even imagine being a construction worker, city person, having to work on that bridge and make sure all those rivets stay tightened. Because I know I was reading or I watched a documentary of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they said once a year or twice a year they have that's how long it takes them, the workers, to go through every rivet on that bridge. And they're doing
Yeah,
it every single day, all year round, and there is no days off. I mean, obviously the workers have like a 5-day week or whatever, but somewhere on that bridge is being worked on or checked or tightened every day, all day long almost.
yeah.
And I can't imagine something being older than the Golden Gate, like this Hell's Gate Bridge. Oh, they've got to be working on that or checking stuff all the time.
You would think so.
And then all the other bridges that New York has too.
Yep. Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, William, I guess back to your vehicles. I honestly, in my time of knowing you, your dioramas stick out more than your personal vehicles. Maybe it's because maybe the time I've known you, I don't know that you post individual vehicles, or I could just be having a brain fart. But your dioramas stick out more. Um, do you just build cars without the dioramas, or do you always try to tell a story?
No, I build a lot of cars without the dioramas. Yeah, absolutely. I like using a diorama. Now I have basically a layout. I think I can show you. I can show you the layout. What I'm going to do is carry the laptop over to my workshop and show you my small town diorama. And that's what I use for most of my photography. I use it for my website photography. I use it when I post
Yeah.
pictures on Facebook. Works out really well. But I build a lot. I build a lot.
You know what? Brain fart. You do build a lot. You build a lot of those Mack trucks. that
Yeah.
you sell.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
those darn trucks have a life of their own. They look too good to be a model. They look like a product that a big, huge $1 million company would be offering out, because your paint work and your detail work is, it's way too good. It really is.
Years of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have, so when I was talking to Dave Rowley, I want to say his last name's Rowley,
I think it's
last night.
Roehre, Rory or something like that.
Yeah, I asked him to pronounce it for me because I couldn't pronounce it, and even when he said it, I couldn't say it right.
Hmm.
So either way, he his he has individual dioramas. He doesn't have a big huge like layout. And I asked him, why don't you have a layout? And he doesn't have the room, but he's built essentially his own town where every shop and everything is something to deal with him, like Dave's town, Dave's speed shop, Dave's whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. Is your town sort of like that, or is it like a train layout with like the downtown in the middle and that's what you do everything on, or is it just
Yeah.
vehicle building related?
It's not really like what you described with Dave's. It's more of a generic town. It has just some of the essential things that small towns have. A firehouse, that's kind of the center of attention. A hotel, a railroad running through, and a couple of bridges. I kind of squeezed a lot into this small area, probably more than a real town might have. You know, I tried
Yeah.
to squeeze a little more in, but the idea behind it was to create a lot of different photography opportunities,
Oh,
different
that's cool.
with good backdrops. And some of the backdrops are just great. I mean, I have this printed, uh, like a hillside with houses on it that I set behind it. And so when I take my photographs, that's a little out of focus, and so it looks real.
Yes, yes, I know what
You know,
you're
since
talking
we're
about,
talking
and
about it,
that's genius.
let me take. I'm going to just carry my laptop over. I think we can do it that way, and I'll give you a little tour of that. We'll see how that works.
Okay, cool.
Let's see if we can do this. Might be hard because I don't know if I can see exactly what the laptop's looking at, but I'll try. Okay, let's see.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's
All
literally
right.
like no bigger than a module. It's set up kind of like a module, but you have the backdrop, the bridge, the skyrise hotel,
Yeah,
and everything's lit up, which is even better.
yeah. I just did the lights about maybe 2 years ago. Let's see. I hope
Yeah, that's, you know what? That is so simple, but packs a punch with detail. You're right.
it
You
does.
have so many little things that is great for camera angles and photo op shoots. That is that is all anybody needs to make perfect pictures
Yeah, that
if they know what they're
backdrop you can
doing.
see there. See how that backdrop is? It's great. I
Yeah.
photograph of a real town. And when it's a
Yeah,
little
that's
out of
perfect.
focus, so like if we get down right here,
Right, it looks real.
yeah,
That's so
a lot of pictures
good.
from this angle right here with that hotel in the background and my firehouse in the background.
And you know what? One would automatically think the photos you take with your product line when you completely build it and it's done and you're using that as the advertisement, one would think that that model was built on or was sitting on something much bigger just
Yeah,
because of how you did your layout, basically your module,
yep.
how you did that little diorama. It's so good.
That's thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's the idea of it. Let me show you some of my HO scale models. Some of the guys who are interested in the 187 stuff. I have a lot of my models up here in my display case. Some of my
Well, I
favorites.
like that you have a display case. A lot of
I have
people
a
sit
bunch
their
of them.
stuff out and it gets dust and dirt all over them.
Yeah, I try to keep everything in a case.
Yeah, I wish I could put my modules in a case so they would stop getting dusty.
Yeah. That is my pressure pot for casting, and this is our cast
Oh, okay.
here. And to give you an idea of how many products we have, this is where we keep our molds.
Oh my gosh, you look like
Yeah.
Mike Budd right now. He's got probably that many too.
There's just hundreds and hundreds of molds in there.
So Mike Budd told me when I went to his house for the St. Louis meet that each one of his molds only lasts about 10 castings long. Is that about how long yours last until you
No,
have to make a new one?
I get more than that out of it. I'm not sure what material he's using, but
I
generally
don't know either.
5, and it depends on the complexity of the part. Certain parts I might get a little bit less than that. Some I can push up to maybe 30 or 35, but that's about it.
That's still pretty good though. I mean,
That's
because
pretty
you're not
good. Yeah.
using a lot of money to make the mold, and
No.
the amount of money you're getting just off of that mold, you can you're probably paying like 40 over about how much that mold took you to use, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
That's
really, it's not that the mold itself, the rubber material for the average mold is just a couple of dollars, really.
right. And then one part,
5.
like the smallest part is probably twice of a couple of dollars of your product. So that already paid it by 2 times,
Yeah.
and you're making, 15, 20, 30 molds out of that,
Yeah.
or molded pieces. That's awesome.
But I try to keep my prices fair on everything. I keep my prices as low as I can. And the good thing about my website and my product line is that I do everything. I make the masters, I make the molds, I cast them. So there's no middleman, there's nobody making additional profit. And that's one of the ways that I can keep my prices pretty low. And
That's awesome.
I think most people will agree with that who
Yeah,
like my
I think
prices
most
because they're
would.
reasonable.
And for anybody that's watching, in the description below, we'll have his Facebook link and his website so you can contact William directly.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's cool because I did hear a lot of tinkering down there, and maybe in your basement you have a trap door with a bunch of workers. No, maybe elves making those
Well,
little parts.
I'm not going to tell. I think some
It's
of that
funny.
sound was my cuckoo clock going off.
It's funny because when we were at Springfield and you had your whole product line or a lot of your product line up, I was looking at the smallest diesel engine you had, like diesel truck engine,
Hmm.
thinking that the latest craze today for hot rods, rat rods, and I don't think customs are doing it, but the rat rod movement, the huge craze right now is to put like a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder diesel engine in the rat rod
Yeah.
with the big, huge blower stack right in front of the window. So the black smoke just bells out, covers you in smoke while you're driving. And I thought I would love to get an engine from you because I think you're the only one that has like the widest selection, and your quality is awesome because I was really looking at them, and every nook and cranny seems to be on the engine,
They
or
are
you have
super
little
detailed.
parts to go with it.
They are super detailed. I had an idea of something like what you were talking about. I wanted to build a model of just basically like a wagon with a gigantic diesel engine on it and a seat and a steering wheel, you know,
That would be
kind of
cool.
radish. So
There,
I started doing it, but it developed into a little bit more than that. And here I'll show you the result because, and it's kind of right along with what you're talking about.
yeah,
All over the top. It's actually it's a fantasy vehicle based on a real Mac parts. But here's what we got. So
oh yeah,
it's got two
okay.
V12 Detroit diesel engines with turbochargers and straight pipes sticking up. It,
That's the rat rod of diesel engine Mack trucks.
it's like a ridiculous heavy haul vehicle. This
Yeah,
in the middle here is a weight, just slabs of concrete.
right, because with all that horsepower, you probably need a weight to hold it to the ground still.
Yep. You can see a V12 Detroit in the back and another one in the front.
That's crazy. That's
Transfer
cool that you
case
did that.
in the middle. Yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It
I
uses
mean, up,
a Mac cab and some parts that would have been on real Macs, and the Detroit diesel engines are accurate. But I don't think
yeah.
Mac ever would have produced this unless I'm
Oh, there,
a designer for them.
right. Yeah. Well, you would think maybe for multi-use idea, like where you just built the frame, the cabin, the engine setup, and then they gave you different options, like say 5 different options for a bed or a dump lift or something on the back of
Hmm.
it or whatever. That might have been an idea that if it did get built, that might have been why. But yeah,
It,
probably not.
it may have happened. If Mack continued to build off-road trucks, unfortunately, they stopped around 1976. If they would have, they may have built something crazy like that.
Yeah,
Built some cool
that's
stuff.
that's neat. That's neat that you ventured to try something different.
Hmm.
And that's what I love, something different.
Yeah, absolutely. What I like about your stuff, different.
Yeah, that's why I keep building because nobody else is building, so I might as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
But yeah, eventually I will be getting an engine from you. Whether I
Okay.
ordered it from your website or I pick it up at Springfield next year, I'm going to get a diesel engine from you and build the ultimate rat rod diesel
Yeah,
engine.
sounds good. I've
I
got.
just, I, I would love to get like a smoker, hollow out that engine, put like a steam engine smoker in there so the exhaust is puffing out smoke.
Hmm.
That would be cool. I'm not
Yeah,
that talented yet, but I would love to do that.
I've got V6s, V8s, and V12s and straight sixes. So you take your choice.
God, I don't
It's
think a
private message.
V12 would work in a rat
It
rod.
would. I've seen them. I've seen rat rods with V12 Detroits in them.
But like diesel truck rat rods are like actual like 1930s Ford sedan rat rods.
Yeah, no, right. Like you're saying, 40s Ford sedan rat rods. Yeah,
That's crazy.
I've seen
Because
them.
I kind of thought about too, like getting a maybe a V12 and building a diesel truck rat rod, and then just getting like a straight four, straight six, or something smaller version, and building that in like a sedan passenger vehicle version.
Yeah,
But things on the list of to do.
yeah, yeah. I got plenty of those.
I think we all do.
Yeah,
But this was awesome, William. I
great
I'm
talking to
so
you.
glad I talked to you because I know at the show we were quite busy at the time, so we didn't have a chance to really sit down and do what we're doing now.
Yeah,
And I love your origin story, your beginnings. That is so cool. I just
thank you.
and I know I was born in the wrong decade because, like you said, they don't have those jobs anymore. So there's
Yeah,
no way of me being able to get one.
yeah, yeah. It was a dream job. I mean, and I still do. I did what I was meant to do. I think. I remember my father saying that to me, saying, "You
That
found your niche."
that is like the best compliment a dad could give a son for job wise.
Yeah,
You were born to do what you do.
yep.
That's dang. Yep. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
I haven't found the job I'm born to do yet.
Don't,
But
well, keep looking.
yeah. All right, William. Well, I think that's kind of all I have um, to ask or to talk about. Anything you want to say that you can think
I
of?
think I think we can pretty much wrap it. I could go on talking with you probably for a couple of hours, but
Oh, I'd love to like
short.
maybe yeah. I mean, we could talk about everything. I
We
don't
could.
care.
Well, I'll tell
But
you what, maybe we'll do another one at some point. I was thinking I might like to demonstrate some mold making a little bit more, actually showing some
that'd be cool. Do like
some
how-tos.
setups. Yeah, we could do that at some point. There's-
Yeah. So kind of how I have my channel set up is I have a playlist, as they call it, for the interviews, and then I made a second playlist for like the history of my stuff, and I could make another playlist for like the how-tos of our guest, like
Yeah,
a show and tell of how this works and how you do that, and that would be pretty neat,
it would be.
and people would like that. But
Well, I'll tell you, Sam, I really appreciate you asking me to be on. It was awesome. It's great chatting,
yeah,
and
I love this. This was great.
I hope a lot of people see this and get to know me a little bit better. People that haven't had a
I
chance.
think they will. I mean, I got to know you a lot better, and I'm so thankful for that. That your story is just great.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That's nice.
And I do like to tell some of my guests that there's a small book that I hold people up to, and it's a small book of master modelers, and you're definitely one of them.
Thank you very much, Sam. I appreciate it.
Whether you had that title before, you already said you did, but I'm reiterating that you are a master modeler in my book.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Well, everybody, I'm going to end this video. You can stay on if you want after the recording's done, but this is Halfass Customs, Sam Dennehy. This podcast is over. You all have a good night.